Hello, 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 my friends. Welcome to WriteHiveCon 2025 and this panel on Beyond Ads, Creative Ways to Fund Your Book. I'm your host for this panel, Nicholas W. Fuller. I'm a booktuber and an author, and I wrote that book. And I'm joined by a lovely panel today. And they are going to introduce themselves now. Let's do Vanessa, then Danny, then Marie, please.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Ricci-Thode, a Nebula-nominated fantasy author, mostly self-published. This book just came out, or it will have just come out once the conference goes live. And this book we'll be talking about Kickstarter it only exists because of Kickstarter. But anyway,
Nice.
yeah, that's me. Hello.
Perfect. Danny?
How's everybody doing? My name is Danny J. Quick. I am the writer and creator of the Ace Blade comic book series. We have 8 issues published, and we're trying to get to 10 by the end of this year, God willing. But the majority of the books that we do, in addition to the superhero comics we do, are all through Kickstarter and crowdfunding, and we do some creative things to get funding for our little indie comic book universe. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And
Marie?
hi, I'm Marie Parks, and this is my debut novel. The sequel should be out later this year. It is actually not crowdfunded, but the audiobook is, so we'll be talking about that. But I'm an ACE author living in New Mexico. A lot of what I have is co-authored. And I love finding ways to sell books that don't involve throwing ad money into the void. So excited to be here.
Perfect. Yeah, and I love that because that's perfect kind of, delving more into like the topic that we want to talk about. Ads are certainly an effective way to drive sales of books, but that's not what we're here for. That's not what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to talk about how can you uh, drive more sales and open new channels without ads. So each of the panelists that are joining me today has some experience with crowdfunding slash Kickstarter. So we're going to start there. We're also going to talk about in-person signings, which is a great way to kind of connect with some readers and sell more books because each of our panelists has some experience there. And then again, each of the panelists has some different ideas and some different experiences from each other. So we're going to talk a little bit about some different things that they've done too. Because there's lots of opportunities besides just running ads to sell more books. Um, the one thing that I do want to kind of caveat is I don't want anyone looking at this panel to think that this is an exhaustive list of every opportunity available to you, because it's not. There's grants and awards, including the Right Hive sponsored writer award. So that's a thing, There's scholarships like for writing retreats, so you can get like get money to fund your trip on a writing retreat. And Marie knows a thing or two about that. You should check out her other presentation. You can sell short works or serialize on Patreon. That's definitely a thing. You can do bookish side hustles like editing or proofreading. There's tons of different ways. Most of those we're not going to talk a whole lot about, just because, we only have so much time. But yeah, tons of other opportunities out there, tons of other resources for those things too. So don't assume that this is an exhaustive list. This is just a few ideas that this wonderful panel has some experience with. So all that kind of caveat and fine print aside, let's get into what we're here to talk about. So first I want to talk about like crowdfunding and Kickstarter in particular. So the first question that I have for you is why? Why crowdfunding? What about it is appealing and works for you, and what does it enable you to do that maybe you wouldn't be able to do otherwise? Um, Anyone want to jump in, or do I need to pick a name? Marie? All right, Marie, I think you had some ideas.
Sure.
Yep.
Um, I will say, like, it's a lot of work, but I mean, putting a book out there into the world is gonna be a lot of work, period. I mean, if
Hmm.
you've already created something, like, what's a little bit more, right? So it's a way to get some buy-in and to create some excitement around something early on. It's a way to create community. It's a way to also kind of do some fun extras that you might not usually be able to do. So that's my perspective, but I would love to hear from my fellow panelists on their thoughts.
Yeah, Vanessa, you said that the book that is right there next to you wouldn't exist without this Kickstarter.
Yeah. I mean, editing is expensive, cover art is expensive. This cover, the artist is phenomenal, and I wouldn't have been able to afford her services without the Kickstarter that I ran. And like, look at this cover, come on, it was worth it. So yeah, the Kickstarter opens up a lot of opportunities, and not just through, you know, the funds that you raise, allowing you to do things you wouldn't otherwise be able to, but Kickstarter does have some things built in to help you reach a new audience, which is really cool. And I've run a few Kickstarters, but this one was the first one where I hit Project We Love status, which was really exciting. And yeah, Kickstarter did a ton of stuff on their end to help promote to Kickstarter users. Um, and this was the first time where the vast majority of the supporters were people I didn't know personally. I was, you know, it's just like, oh, look at all these wonderful strangers who are here for my book. So yeah, it was great. It was great. Yeah, so the platform itself has so many built-in opportunities to
Mhm.
help you reach your audience.
Nice. Yeah. And I feel like more and more, like there's a bookish audience that's looking to Kickstarter to find more things that they're finding appealing and interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about, and Danny, we'll get to you in just a second, but Vanessa, can we talk a little bit more about like what specific things are there to kind of help you succeed, and what did like Kickstarter do in your instance to help you succeed? And then also, can you explain what the Project We Love is for anyone that doesn't know?
So Project We Love is like a little banner they give you, and it's extra help on their end. They do have someone dedicated to publishing the publishing area of Kickstarter, and her job is just looking after the authors and making sure things, you know, if you have questions, making sure things go smoothly. And on their end, they do, like when you go into Kickstarter, there's like suggestions for you and whatever. And once your project you love, um, you're more likely to show up there, and they just have a lot more, like they've all these things on the back end that push things out. If you get your, you know, project you love status, they will help you reach these people. Oh, you liked this one, so maybe you'll like this one, and then they're showing, you know, my thing to other people. um and that was new and really exciting to get that extended reach, that Kickstarter can provide, because I don't have that kind of reach on my own.
Sure, sure. All right. And Danny, why crowdfunding for you? What has it kind of enabled? What draw you to it?
Yeah, I think like they both just said, I think there's some added um some added bonus to having a crowd already baked in a platform like Kickstarter. And there are a lot of great crowdfunding platforms, but Kickstarter specifically is filled with people who want to help people create things. And to have that in instead of just, you know, throwing it out to the void is always great. But you know, me specifically, I like to do things, I'm kind of like Marie said, like special things that might not be for everybody, but it's something that I want to do. Like we've done special edition t-shirts, we've done, you know, shoes, we've done action figures, things like that, that will cost a lot to make. But when you are able to kind of front load it and say, oh, if is this something that you would want, and then people go ahead and pay for it, then you can,
Right.
you know, better gauge how much money to spend on those things. And it gives you a leg up.
That is such a good point that I think is underappreciated and not talked about enough. And like, I mean, because essentially with a Kickstarter, you're getting people to kind of prepay for whatever they're getting, right? So you're going to know exactly how much of whatever, you know, your action figures in your case, which is awesome. You know exactly how many of those you need to order and how many have already sold versus, you know, maybe you know, you already sold like 20 of them, but you know, you're going to order like 30 so that you got like a few more to go take to a con, one for you, right? Right? Yeah. I like it. That's, yeah, super cool. The other thing I've heard before that's really valuable about crowdfunding in general is that you're going to get email addresses from all these people, right? Whereas if they just bought your work on Amazon, you're probably not going to know who it is. But if they're selling if you're selling through a crowdfunding platform, then you're going to get their email address and you can go and reach out to them again, right? So that's something that I think about. Um, Let's talk a little bit about like Kickstarter versus other platforms. I know I think at least two of you, maybe all three of you, have worked with a different platform before too, right? Cool. Let's kind of go in the same order. Marie, Vanessa, Danny. What other platform have you worked with, and like how does it compare?
So I've been a Kickstarter customer, but I've actually never run a campaign on it.
Okay.
the audiobook for Unrelenting was on BackerKit,
Hmm.
which is, I guess, previously it was more like distribution. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on this. But then they also opened up like a front end funding platform as well. And we'd heard that the distribution was really, really great with BackerKit. And so decided, let's just try the funding. I'll say I'm still not great at navigating where stuff is in it. And I definitely have to like search around, but I would say that their customer service is really great and the fulfillment process has been very simple. So that's been really nice. And then I've also supported a client before with Indiegogo. And that was nice too because they had a really nice opportunity for the sort of like take home whatever you make, even if you don't hit your goal. And
Hmm.
so for projects where there is a really lofty goal, that might be a good platform.
Good point about the goals too. That's like a whole different, like, I feel like we could talk for a while on just like goal setting and stretch goals and whatnot. But
Yeah.
uh Vanessa, what other like platforms have you used?
Yeah, I've used Indiegogo. It was a while ago, but the nice thing about them is that you can set it so that you because with Kickstarter, you either hit your goal or you get nothing. But Indiegogo does give you the option. You can do that, or you can say, I'll just keep whatever pledges actually come in, which can be valuable because then I did have that happen where I didn't hit the goal on one of my books, but I still brought in enough that I could at least do the editing. So I had a cheap cover that I wasn't really happy with, but at least the book was professionally edited and it still got out into the world. And more recently, I was able to do a recover for it that looks really great. Um, but the book still got out there when it otherwise wouldn't have because I wouldn't have been able to afford, the back end costs of publishing it. I do still prefer Kickstarter, even though it has, that you either fund or you don't, just because it does have the farther reach and it's got more
Right,
of a community for
right.
publishing than I have found on Indiegogo.
I think they have much better brand awareness too. Like, like
Yeah.
you say Kickstarter and I think people kind of get it these days.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
say Indiegogo and people are like, eh? Right.
Yeah, and I think that there's that built-in urgency of,
Hmm.
okay, you only have 30 days or whatever your
Mm.
goal is, especially for me. Like I've done Indiegogo and I've used BackerKit, but I keep coming back to Kickstarter because of all the things that you said. They have so many people already active users on there. They have you have to make the goal or you get nothing, and that's great for a person like me, um who knows, hey, if I don't hit this $3,000, $10,000, whatever it is, then I can't make the project. I'm not gonna, if because the situation I had on Indiegogo is we were way underfunded, and now
Mm.
I felt like I needed to come out of pocket to deliver the same quality the product to the people who, the
Yeah.
the 10% of people who did, back me. So
Yep.
and it set me back for a long time. So you learn different things, but like Marie was saying, I've used BackerKit, and I think one of the great things about them was that they filled a void that Kickstarter didn't have for a while. They didn't Kickstarter didn't have. They do now, actually. They just launched the pledge manager function, and I think in response to BackerKit becoming its own crowdfunding site, honestly. But BackerKit was so much easier to kind of fulfill orders through. They would import your data from Kickstarter. You could pay for all your labels at one time, organize it, and it was so easy. So, but then they collected the data. They said, you know what, we can, have all these people here. We can do crowdfunding ourselves. And now Kickstarter has the pledge manager too. So I'm eager to see how they've been able to adapt.
This is the one thing that I think is like, I mean, it's true with all technology is that you get used to one thing and like things always change, right? Right. You have to kind of keep relearning. But one thing that I think can be an advantage that I don't think I've heard any of you mention. So Danny, you've worked on a few different platforms. Selling your material on Kickstarter versus like let's just stick with the book, selling it on Amazon. You're gonna get a bigger percentage of that money that people are pledging, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And It's a big difference. I think I had my books on Amazon, and comic books are different than novels and short
Sure.
stories, of course. I think Amazon has its own fulfillment for novels,
Hmm.
um, and you know it works. But for comic books, you know, only selling them for $5 or $10, they take a big chunk out of that. So,
Hmm.
you know, I like to focus my efforts on, you know, the crowdfunding, number
Hmm.
one. Then we actually have a TikTok shop that does very well. That's probably our second. It's actually our highest seller right
Like,
now,
right. Yeah.
and then our website. So the crowdfunding is definitely a huge boost to get everything made. And then you know the other distribution sites. You know,
Yeah.
you take it or leave it. You know, just depending on what you like.
Yeah. Yeah. Building on that idea though, like a little bit more money. One thing I've seen too, and Vanessa, let me ask you if you've seen this, if you agree with this, or if you're like, nah, I don't think you're hitting the mark there, Nick, which is fine. But like I've kind of noticed, like on Amazon and ebook, of course it's going to be in a certain range because it's kind of Amazon sort of dictates what that range is going to be for an indie ebook. But usually you're not going to like a lot of indie ebooks are maybe going to be in the like $5, $6, $7 range, or even a little bit cheaper. A lot higher than that, I don't see a lot of. But on Kickstarter, actually, I do see a fair bit of like ebooks only that are like $10. And that doesn't seem to turn off people. That seems to be a price point that is very acceptable on Kickstarter, but maybe might be like feel high on Amazon, even though the product is the same. Do you agree with that, or am I off the mark?
No, no, especially more recently. I know ebooks for a while there, like a while ago, were a much lower tier pledge than they are now. But I've seen people doing 10, 15 even for an ebook on on Kickstarter. Whereas, if you're going over like $7, $8 on Amazon, it's probably not going to sell.
Right.
Um, People are so used to free 99 cents on
Right.
Amazon that they see anything much higher than that and they're like, ah, too expensive. Whereas
So,
Kickstarter, there's a whole different mindset for
right.
people who are on Kickstarter looking for books, and they're willing to pay because they know that they're helping a thing come to life.
Yes, yeah, that's such a good point. Wow, wow. I
Yeah,
do like I think I just bought The Devils by Joe Abercrombie at the time of recording that just came out, and like it's $15 for the Kindle edition. I'm so mad at those stinking like trad publishers. Like, why like 15? Whatever. I mean, if Joe was getting all that money, I'd be like, sure, Joe, you got
that's
the
the thing.
reputation, right? Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen ebooks. One of my favorite books is $20 as an
What?
ebook. What? So, and I know that the author is getting maybe 50 cents out of that. So that's the other thing with Kickstarter. You're paying $10 for the ebook, but
Yeah.
all that, like, what is it? 90% of that $10 is going to the author. So,
Hmm.
I've seen people refer to Kickstarter supporters as angel investors, and that's sort of it. You're investing in
Ooh.
somebody's art. And so there's more of a willingness to pay more because you're helping put this thing out in the world. Usually, people who are backing on Kickstarter are really enthusiastic about it. So they're really happy to help, give that little bit extra to see this thing be made and come out into the world.
I'm writing that down, angel investors, because there's definitely like a Kickstarter somewhere in my future, and I love that phrasing, like that. Mm, mm. All right, so we got like, I mean, you got a bigger audience, you got kind of a different audience, you got a more kind of receptive audience to wanting to bring your project to life. You've got better percentages. You're going to get emails from people. This seems awesome. I guess like I want to get into like what are people looking for on Kickstarter, but I guess let's spend a little bit. We talked a lot about, the positives. What negatives do you guys see for crowdfunding? Oh, oh, I can see some smirks. There's some negatives here. Danny, go ahead. You put your hand up. Let's start with you, Danny.
I think there's two big negatives, but they're not, you know, they're not huge. They're not the
They're
worst thing in the
manageable.
world.
They're
Yeah,
manageable.
they're manageable. So the number one thing that I always run into is the education part of it. Like people
Mm,
bringing new people to the platform, they don't know how to use Kickstarter. They don't know that, you know, the money doesn't come out until the end of the campaign and it's all or nothing. So every time I've done a Kickstarter, and I think I've done 15 of them at this point. Have I done 15 kicks? Yeah, so I've done I've done a lot of Kickstarters, and you have to educate the new audience that you've made, that you've built, every
Yeah.
time. You have to do it every time, or those new backers or those new people that you may have found on social media since the last one, they are very hesitant to, to jump on a crowdfunding campaign on a platform that they don't, know how to use, you know. So that education portion of it, and then for in my experience on Kickstarter, there's always a lull period. Like there's a period,
Mhm.
the first 4 or 5 days, you know, everybody's eager to pledge. The next couple days you might get some trickle in, and then it seems like there's a dead zone every time, especially if you do like a 30-day campaign. There's like a 6 7 day dead zone where it's like, do people even know that I exist? And and then it ramps back up at the end. But I found kind of creative ways to get through that, just continuing to make content, and to use that
Okay.
education factor as content to keep
Yeah.
driving people in there. So but yeah, it's so consistent. Those two things are consistently things that eat at my brain every time we do a crowdfunding campaign.
Okay. Okay. Word. So and with that dead zone, you said just kind of making more content and kind of that sort of thing is helping to, okay. All right, that makes sense. Vanessa and then Marie, like some negative, some concerns, some.
Yeah, that middle is brutal. I make my Kickstarter shorter, so there's less middle. I have a
How
longer lead up, because you can put up your coming soon page, however far in it's a ridiculous amount of time in advance you can put it up to
Mhm.
to build excitement that way and get people to know about it in advance. So I think I did a month with the most recent one of,
Mhm.
or maybe it was 6 weeks, I don't remember. It was a while where I was just like, this is coming and telling people about the book and here it
Mhm.
comes and be ready because it's going to be short. Um, because it's emotionally taxing and it was very emotionally taxing for me to have longer Kickstarters. I think the first one I did was a 30-day one and I was like, never, never again.
No.
Um,
How long are you
the
running them now?
I'm sticking with about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Actually the book that I have that's a Nebula finalist, I only did that one for a week. It was a
Oh,
week
wow. Okay.
long. It was a small goal. I just needed to pay for the cover art. I already had everything else lined up, so it was just enough to pay for the cover art. Because that was an unexpected expense that like it ended up costing more than I thought it would.
Mm.
So that was smaller. It was a week long, and there was still a lot of people who afterwards were like, "Oh darn, I missed this." So you do want to have, because people can follow your pre-launch page. So having a long pre-launch does help if you're doing a shorter actual run, so that when if they follow your pre-launch, they get a notice when you launch. And reminders later if they get to, about 3 days away from the end and they haven't pledged yet. It's like, hey, don't forget about this, which is another positive about Kickstarter. But so the negatives is a lot of work, and then there's you really have to pay attention to shipping. Your shipping costs are always huge, and the very first back on Indiegogo that I didn't factor in the shipping costs, and oh Lord, because
Oh.
I'm in Canada and shipping is
Mm.
ridiculous here. So we don't have $4 media mail. It's tough. It's tough. Like it's $10, at least 10, $12 a book to ship
We
them.
barely have it anymore either,
Yeah.
Vanessa. So yeah.
So anyway, be mindful of shipping costs. Really research them, because and not just shipping, but what the supplies you need to package your books before you ship them is
Yep.
another cost
Mm.
that I think people forget about. So there are
Bubble
hidden
wrap's
things that,
not free? What? Oh.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's taxing. It's taxing, and that's something that I think people need to be prepared for when they go into it, is that it can be a real emotional drain. So just be ready for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And consistent with what I've heard before. I'm surprised that it took this long to hear. Fulfillment is kind of a bear. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Marie, anything to kind of add to the cons or concerns here?
I mean, I'm totally on the same page as both of you all. The only other thing I might add is, and maybe this is just because um, my eyes were bigger than my proverbial stomach, I guess, but I used, I used our crowdfunding campaign as a way to launch a little side project that I'd been trying to do for a little while. So ostensibly, I mean, really, it was to fund an audiobook. But which was great. And that worked out and it covered the cost of it. But then I had like 7 people, I think, got it. We had, so it was our first one ever. So we had 81 backers, which was amazing. And so 7 of them backed this thing that I was like really excited to make. And it was, my co-author and I had done this thing where we had built in all these little secrets. So as you're reading, it's like, oh, when you finish chapter 3, open this secret envelope and you'll get like more clues or more information or whatever. Um, and I was so excited to make it. And it ended up being the most time-consuming, expensive thing. I finally got them shipped out and I was really proud of them. And I was also like, never again. And so you can kind of get yourself into a little problem. Or
Yeah.
like, you know, Danny, for instance, you were mentioning action figures. Like, I don't know how much those cost. I'm sure you were very responsible in how you were like trying to price those out. But okay, no. If it were me, and maybe it wasn't
I had
you.
the same issue, Marie. I was like, why
Got
did
it.
I decide to do this? This
Yeah.
was too much.
Yeah. So I think like to your point that you said earlier, Danny, about it being a good way to gauge like audience interest in buying a thing, I
Hmm.
think it also can be a good way for us to gauge like, is it actually even worth it for us to put these little perks together, these little pet
Sure.
projects that are maybe ancillary to the bigger overarching goal, which is like a good thing, but also it comes out of like a battle scar of
Hmm.
having done something that was unexpectedly difficult or expensive.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I've got a friend that has a whole bunch of plushies that are based on his book, and like he was excited about them, and there was like a minimum run, and he's like,
Yeah.
I didn't sell enough plushies, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Like he's got plushies for days for cons. Uh, so I want to kind of move on to the idea too of like signing and in-person events, but like if we could briefly, I want to ask about still with Kickstarter, like what do you find that people are looking for? It like because I have seen Kickstarters for like a debut novel and it's sort of just what you can expect from Amazon. And I've seen Kickstarters for really beautiful special editions for books that have been out for years. And it does seem like kind of the special editions, I mean, they have the advantage of that they already have an audience, right? Um, I don't know. Like I think some of the special editions are generating more money, but that doesn't mean that like a debut, like I mean, some of those Kickstarters I would say were very successful for a debut launch. But anyway, like you know, what do you think people are looking for is the fundamental question. Let's go, Vanessa, Marie, Danny.
I mean, it's different because
Yeah.
they're just two different beasts, and I think there's a place for both of them because yeah, those special editions are hot. I want to be able to run a special edition someday. I'm not there yet, and the platform does both. You know, it helps the people with a giant audience put out their luscious special editions, and it
Hmm.
helps people like me who are more starting out put out a book at all. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's important for the ecosystem to have both and anything in between, where maybe someone's doing like, you know, putting out their paperback, but also like maybe a couple of bonus features, or if we hit this stretch goal, we're going to do illustrations to sort of put it, a little above and beyond just a paperback, but not quite into the, sprayed edges and foiled
Hmm.
covers. Um, and I think that's great because, maybe people can't afford those really fancy, gorgeous books, but there's still something there that they can help support and get something back and have a book at the end that's lovely and know that they contributed to that coming out without, paying 50, 60, 70, 100, 150, whatever it is,
Yeah, yeah.
and those higher tiers that you get on the special editions.
I love that. Actually, I think that's such a good point, actually, that maybe I hadn't really considered that like this is enabling some books to come out at all, you know? But yeah. Um, Marie, anything to kind of add to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're shopping for your next read on Amazon, I don't even know how many books are on there. It's a lot. If you're shopping for your next, book or comic book or creative obsession on Kickstarter, yeah, there's a lot, but it's less.
Way
And
less.
so you're already dealing with like just more visibility, which is nice. And then I think beyond that, I think people are just looking for the cool factor. Like maybe it is like dragons and magic and ace, or maybe it's like what like whatever the thing is that like someone's
Yeah.
like, ooh, that premise sounds really cool. And because it is a smaller platform, And also like things roll off of it, right? Like
Yeah,
there's fewer things in a given moment. Like, even the grand total of number of projects on Kickstarter is still less
right.
than what's on Amazon right now, but only a fraction of those are even available right now. So, just like what can you do to have a pitch that like really succinctly grabs somebody right at the beginning? And you will find people who have never heard of you who are now so excited and cannot wait to join.
Love it. All right. I like that. Danny, I imagine you have more to add to this as well, because of course you've done not just novels, but your comic books too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think for comic books, it's different because what yes, the thing that gets people, a lot of people are looking for variant covers when it comes to comic books. We do this thing where it's the same comic book, but we might bring in a guest artist, or we might have it is I guess it's the same as a special edition, but it's baked in right with the campaign. So because comic book collectors are love like more rare things, we
Hmm.
can offer like exclusive, hey, this is you're only going to be able to get this cover on Kickstarter, you're only going to be able to get this variant cover by this artist on this campaign in these 30 days. And that's one thing that I know consistently, that people come when they come look for Ace Blade. There's backers who literally will say, hey, make a tier where I can get all of the variant covers, and I got you. They don't care if it's $50, if it's $100. They say, I want all the variant covers, I want the main cover, and I want you to sign them, and I'll pay for it, which is
And you're
which is
like,
awesome.
I like you.
And I'm like, yes, I will do that for you, no problem.
Yeah.
Um, so it's that's one thing that consistently brings people back. But like I was saying, every campaign we try to do something different. Like we tried with the action figures, and thankfully we did sell them. We only did 5 of them, but we had to sell those 5 at like $200 a piece because they're expensive to make.
Yeah.
So thankfully that we were able to sell those. But one year we did a Kickstarter right when it was back to school time, and we did book bags, and that was something that people really enjoyed. So every campaign we try to bring something new to it, something that we hadn't done before. And but the variant covers definitely keep people coming back.
That's what's up. Do you have one of everything that you like? You have one of the action figure, you have one of the book bag, no, you don't?
I don't, but my mom does, so she's
That's what's up. That's the big
yeah,
supporter right there. She's the one that
yeah,
wanted all the variant covers, isn't
you're right, yeah.
it? That's cool. That's cool. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about signings and in-person events. It sounds like Danny, I'm gonna stick with you for right now. Like you've got some experience doing some of this, right?
Yeah, man. The signings, again, comic books it's such a like sub genre or niche. I don't know what you call it. But the good thing about it is that we have comic book stores. We have places to gather around these things. We have comic book conventions,
Yeah.
and it's always great to have like an audience that likes exactly what you do.
Yeah.
I mostly most of the comics I write are superhero comics. Vigilante comics, and that is easy to find. It's in the zeitgeist now that there are superheroes, there are stories about superheroes, and you don't have to be part of Marvel or DC to make these books. And it's always great to go to a comic book convention, or to call a comic book store. Like we go to Acme Comics in Greensboro. Anytime we have a new book come out, they are happy to have us for a day. They say, hey, come set up your shop, set up in the store for a couple hours, tell people you're coming out, and people always show up because they love comic books. And that's always a way to make some extra money, to boost sales. And I just feel fortunate to have kind of a community around the thing that I like to make. And
Yeah.
and to be able to lean on that.
I've said to my wife every time I go to like a Comic Con or like a pop culture, whatever, I'm like, man, I just feel like I'm around my people. I'm just surrounded
Mhm,
by other nerds, and like it's a wonderful thing.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right. I want to get back to that, and like, but I want to make sure that we're getting to everyone, and also like, I know that you have to get out at some point, Danny. But let's do the Vanessa. Like, what kind of signings, in-person events have you done?
I do a lot of outdoor fairs and festivals.
Neat.
locally. I do a lot of stuff like that. Last year I did, I don't know, 30 something, and I'm on track to do 30 something again this year. I do a lot of Pride
Wow.
because my
Wow.
books
Great.
are all queer. They all have queer content in them.
Hmm.
I'm a queer creator, so I do Pride. I do great at Pride. I do the Ren fairs. I was just at a Ren fair this weekend. I'll be at another one next weekend because fantasy. So it's sort of like Comic-Con, but it's outside and it's a little slightly different crowd. But there's a
It's
lot of overlap in that
yeah,
crowd.
yeah.
I'm actually doing my first Comic-Con this year. I do smaller ones. I don't go to the US anymore, and so I'm
Mm.
just like sort of recalibrating what I do because I've always found conventions really valuable um, for not just for meeting fans, but for connecting with other industry people. And like, I met Marie through writing excuses, so you make friends along the way, and that's so valuable too. Um, but yeah, I do a lot of local stuff and like I'm fortunate where I live, my region really supports the arts. So we have all kinds of little art markets all the time. They're great and local people are very excited. Oh, you're an author.
Ooh.
Um, there's authors here. I love it. So yeah, I find that and then again, you're meeting your audience, you're where the people are. And I really love doing those. I'm an extrovert, so they're easier for me to do too, because I can talk to people all day long and I don't get tired, which is
Oh,
another thing to consider
Yeah.
doing these
Superhero.
things
Yeah.
is if you are not an extrovert, make sure you factor in all the downtime you're going to need.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be me. Yeah. I have to share the briefest of stories. So I think it was in last year's panel. I moderated another panel where we were talking about in-person events. And there was a wonderful guy there and he was talking about going to a Ren fair and he was just selling his book at a fantasy Ren fair. And there was some dude that was there at the Ren fair as like a bard. And he was like, wow, that's really cool. Can I like kind of tell people about your book? And of course, the author's like, yeah, of course, great. And the bard starts like plucking his lute and saying, "Look at this nerd, he wrote a book." Like in the like supportive, but I was like, and then we started like the whole rest of the panel. It was like you got to be your own bard sometimes, you got to be your own bard. Like it was, yeah. Go check out that one because that was Red Hive also. It's on the same channel. It was just like a year or two ago. Like anyway, cool. Marie, in-person events, go.
I love that story. That's
Right?
amazing. Yeah, I've done kind of a mix of what Vanessa and Danny have done. I am also a complete introvert, and so I do have to factor in that time. And usually these types of events are like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or
Yeah.
whatever. And so then you're going straight into a work week. So like if you can just block off the next weekend to just be dead to the world, that's key. Um, because man, it's a lot to just be like on all weekend. But I do love doing fairs. Maybe it's because I'm in the Southwest, so it's a little warmer. So a lot of
Hmm.
them are like inside, but like take a look and see in your community, are there like we have a thing in Albuquerque called Bubonicon, and it's like our fantasy sci-fi like literary convention. And then we of course have like Comic-Con type things, which also, book authors can fit right into. My big key for this, especially for early stage creators and authors, is see if you can double up with somebody else or even triple up. Because, like, people may not have heard of you, but if you're at like the cool sci fi fantasy comic book table or like whatever the thing is, you can draw in people who are like, well, I'm interested in one of those things. And then you're like, oh, cool. Are you more of a reader of this or that? And so, that, like, you can then become a curator of like all of the different options at your table. So that's been really great. And it also allows you to split the cost of a booth between everybody. So that's nice. It lets you like get up and pee or like go see what all the other vendors are doing or whatever. Um, and then sometimes like the Columbus Book Festival in Columbus, Ohio is like one of my very favorites for like independent and small press authors. Consistently people sell out of books there. But you can also get like a time to do like a little signing, I think there. I think Tucson Book Festival also does this. So you can have a booth, but see if you can also like use that to like get on panels or have a little like special signing event. I've even done this in bookstores. So I happened to be in Salt Lake City at the same time as an author who has a much bigger following, but I have a friendship with. And so we went in together with a fantasy sci-fi bookstore there in Salt Lake City, and we were able to do like a co-signing, co-reading event. So whenever you can double up, it's good.
I like it.
It's
I like it.
fun too. It's way
Yes.
more fun to have to share your table, especially if it's somebody you like.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I have been stuck at tables with people I don't particularly enjoy, and it's a
Mhm.
little rough. But yeah, you get to split the costs. It's more fun. You can be each other's wingman. Like there's so many benefits to sharing the table with somebody if you can, for sure.
You've got someone else to watch your stuff when you need to run to the bathroom. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or
I
even
hear
like
you.
if your publisher has a table and then
Mm,
can you just like ask them, can I take a little corner of it? But I'm also happy to like, sell stuff for you so that you can get up like just whatever you can do to collaborate, I think just is important.
nice. Danny, I want to go back to you. You were talking about like comic books, and I mean, we could all get books into bookstores, but how do we make that happen? Were you like the first to reach out to like the comic book that like seems to really like your stuff now?
Yeah, getting into stores is really tough. Especially for comics. Um, I think it always helps locally when you do things in the community. If you're out where the people are who run the shows, if you frequent the comic book store, the people in there are usually really receptive to, local artists, local creators. But there there is, or I'll say there was a system for comic books, to submit your books to get distributed, nationally. And if you have a national audience, that's cool. You can pay and get your stuff in there, and or people can order it. But if you don't have a national audience, it can be really daunting. Um, and I'm still building towards that. So, we really stick to the stores that know us and that we know that can sell our books. um, and we also offer kind of like things on our TikTok shop to say, hey, if you want some Ace Blade comics, we'll make you a good deal. We'll send you some books. And we'll do our best to help you sell them. I'll make videos for your show, for your store, and things like that. But I think it's just a collaborative effort. I think a lot of, especially comic book stores, are small businesses and they don't have high profit margins. They can't really take risks on things. Of course, they're going to be able to sell Batman books easier than Ace Blade books. So of course they're going to have Batman books in their store. But if we can get 20 copies in there and sell them over the course of a month, you know, even though it's a little harder work, I think it's worth doing.
I hear you. I went to like a local independent bookstore and I'm like, you guys aren't selling Fourth Wing? Like, not that I want it. I'm just like, that seems like easy money, Like, uh, but yeah. All right, Danny, I want to ask you too before you need to run. Like, you mentioned to me beforehand that community events are also a thing that you do, and I think you said something about like a premiere, right?
Yeah, yeah. We did a we so another thing that we did on Kickstarter was we did a short film because we want to do film. We want to we I just want to do it all. I just want to do it all. So we did a short film, and thankfully we got it funded. We shot and edited the film, and then we did like a small movie premiere, at a local church. They had the big screens, and we invited people, and people came out, and then we sat and talked to the cast of the movie. We talked about things that we were working on, and we had our comic books there. And I was like, in addition to, this is actually not what I do. I actually write comic books. So check out the comic books, and I'm working on a short film for Ace Blade right now. So hopefully we'll be able to do something similar later for that.
That's pretty cool. So with the Kickstarter for the film, like the only thing that you were kind of selling in that Kickstarter was the film, it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the film, and getting your name in the credits, stuff like that. But
Oh,
thankfully
sick.
for this one with Ace Blade, we'll be able to offer books, and we'll be able to offer variant covers and special editions and action figures and book bags and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. Hopefully we'll be able to get that happening at the end of the year.
I have a question for you, Danny. How long ahead do you start planning like a Kickstarter like that?
Planning probably a couple months out, but we don't really. I mean, similar to what Vanessa was saying, we don't start promoting until like 30 days before max, probably 30 days. As long as I have the actual date in mind, I can say, hey, the Kickstarter is gonna be launching on 11/22 or whatever, and keep that as part of the marketing. But plan out for it, to get the action figures and book bags and all that stuff that we want to do, get it priced and everything to make sure that it's all copacetic. But we don't start telling people about it until we know for sure.
Cool.
In-person events, like, so Ren fairs is cool. Like, I mean, clearly you're doing some stuff that's like maybe a little not so obvious. Like, how did you start doing Ren fairs? And like, do you have to like, is there like a vendor sign up, or like, are you just like walking around with like a bag of holding where you're like bringing out books, you know?
I would love to do that, but I think some of those places frown on that sort of thing. So yeah, no, there are vendor calls that go out, and I started learning to watch for them. Whenever I heard about events, I would be like, all right, so it was this month, so I probably have to go back this many months to look for the vendor for next year. They put out the call. And I just, just being out in the community, seeing, oh, there's this thing going on. That sounds really cool. There's a lot of markets for artists. And I just said, books are art. Can I be in your market? And they're like, yeah, sure. And that's it. Just asking, like, can I do this? Because usually people don't think about books when it's an art crafty market thing. And they're often kind of surprised. Oh, hey, books. Yeah, that's a great idea. Um, and so I just do it. And now I just look for them anytime there's anything with any kind of market um to it. I
Yeah.
will look for the vendor form and be like, how do you feel about having books?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and usually because it's local, I'm a local author, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. I'm not a bookstore, or I'm not a publisher.
Right.
So that it's a different, I do count as like the little crafty vendors. Because if you're corporate, it's a much bigger expense. It's like $400 a booth, 500, $1,000 a booth. I'm like, I can't do that. But yeah, it's just some Google, some wandering around, asking the people who run things. And if there's a gap that you see, you can be extra like me and just start something. I run a local author book fair here in my home city. So
Nice.
we're gonna have, it's actually later the month that we're recording this, and there's going to be like 60 local authors selling their books at it, and doing
Damn.
readings. And it came out of one of these art market things that's run by my city. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to have more authors at this. And I knew all of the authors because I used to be the NaNoWriMo ML in my region for like a decade. So I know everybody. Um, and again, this is getting into community. Being part of the community is so important to having,
Yeah.
getting your books out there, especially if you don't want to, give all your money to Amazon for ads. Um,
Right.
so I started collaborating with my city.
Yeah. That's super cool. So last kind of follow up for you on this. As a extrovert that's clearly done like a fair bit of this, like what's your advice for someone that's maybe like a little nervous and doesn't know how to kind of pitch their book at one of these events?
Oh, buddy up for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Have a friend
So
who's
get someone
especially
else to do it. Got it. Got
get someone
Get a
else to
bard.
get yourself a bard. So I have a group of friends who are local, and we all write sort of spec fic of various kinds, and we get booths together, and we read each other's books. We know what they're about, and so
hmm
if my one
Mm.
friend is stumbling trying to, I'm like, no, wait, this book is amazing. He's selling it short. Let me tell you about this. And
That's
they
so
will do the
good.
same for me. And yeah, it's just practicing your pitching is important. But if you're nervous, definitely having somebody there as backup is so great.
Nice. Nice. Oh, yeah. I love that. Yeah, he's selling it so short. Because I think we do that with our own art, right? We're like, it's fine. It's kind of bad. But like you talk about someone else's and you're like, no, no, no. That baby is beautiful. And you will say nothing bad about it,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who was shortlisted for the Lambda Awards, and he never mentions it when he's trying to sell the book. And I'm like, my guy, slap
Yeah.
that sticker on there. You were a Lambda finalist.
Right. Nice,
So,
nice.
like, yeah, there's all these things we don't think of, or we're trying to be humble or whatever.
Sure.
And you have to sell, your book, and you have to hype it up, which can be
Yes.
uncomfortable. But yeah, breaking out of that, and just if you're excited about your book, other people are
Yeah.
going to be excited about your book.
I think, like that's something I learned too, not to get on, but I think it's relevant in that like you're asking someone to trust you with your writing and your work and whatnot. And like my humor tends to be very self-deprecating, but I've learned that if I do that while I am asking for someone to trust me with the thing, they're not gonna want to trust me, you know? Like I need to kind of be okay being my own bard a little bit about like my creative work and saying that no, this is good. Because yeah, like even if it's someone like Brandon Sanderson or Stephen King, like imagine Stephen King put out another book and he's like, it's probably not my best, you know? Like, right? Would you be like, oh, I can't wait to get that one? No, you'd be like, wow, really? Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate the honesty, Steven, but like, let's wait for the next one, you know? Like, yeah. So we gotta be okay with it. All right, that's my little rant there.
I think, can I chime in on this?
Yes, please, yes.
Like one mindset that really helped me when I was first doing these like in-person hand sell type events was two things. One is saying like, this is a chance for me to practice my pitch
Mm,
and to figure out how to pitch it well over the
mm,
course of the however many hours I'm sitting here, right?
mm.
And secondly, the what is the worst case that happens is like the current status, which is like I haven't sold this pile of books.
Yeah.
So like the worst case is like I'm already living it. It's fine. Like I'm not dead. It's okay.
Yes,
So
yes,
it can
yes.
only go up from here.
Man, I love both those framings. I really like the idea of like, yeah, this is just like a pitch training, you know? That's cool.
Yeah.
Let's move on a little bit. We talked to Danny about his community events, which is pretty cool. I want to do a premiere for something. I don't know what for, but that sounds cool, you know. Um Vanessa, you talked a little bit, you mentioned to me social media and then also some friends are streaming. So what tell us about the streaming and tell us what you're doing on social media that's worked for you.
So social media is difficult because I'm on Blue Sky and that's working for me because I got in the ground floor. Uh,
Mm.
I was there when it was invite only and made a lot of connections when it was easier because there were less people. Um, so it's hard to replicate what I've done with Blue Sky, but I mean, you can still leverage Blue Sky because there isn't the algorithm. So people actually see your stuff. Um, Blue Sky's more work than some other platforms because there is no algorithm. So you do have to, especially initially, put in the work of really commenting on people's things and just really interacting a lot. So I think if people are looking at Blue Sky and like, oh, it's not working for me, and you want it to, I would say set aside some time. Um, where you're just like, I'm going to spend this much time every day just like commenting on people's stuff and following people who look interesting. And that's one way to sort of leverage Blue Sky. Another thing is starter packs. I don't think they're quite as big as they were for a bit there. And that was another thing that I got on a ton of starter packs when they were like all the rage. And so I suddenly found myself with a huger following than I've ever had anywhere ever. Like 10 years on Twitter and I had 800 followers and now I'm 2 years on Blue Sky and I have 4,000. I just hit 4,000 yesterday and I'm like, what is happening? I don't understand. Um, but yeah, so there's lots of great things about Blue Sky. It's just learning how to use it and putting in the time initially to make the connections.
Sure.
But like my Kickstarter that I just ran, it was the first one I ran without Twitter, and it did way better than any of the other ones that I've had. And half the people coming in were coming from Blue Sky.
Nice.
And just because, I wasn't getting punished for talking about my books, including links and hashtags and all that. That stuff
Yeah,
all
right.
works.
Right.
Um, so yeah, there was that. And then for streaming, so I don't stream. I'm old. I'm bad at all this stuff. I'm not a gamer. I'm sorry. I'm an old millennial.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and but my friends who I talked about earlier, we do book stuff together. They're younger than me by like 15 years or something ridiculous, and they're so into this stuff. So they're always, I think they use Twitch. They use Twitch and they have a YouTube channel, and they stream on there quite a bit. And Danny was talking before we started recording about his, so I think people should probably check out what Danny does. But they like talk about their comics. My friends are also comics creators, and so they live stream, they play games. Ursula dies all the time, and everybody laughs about it, and it's a big joke. And um, and
Nice.
that's it. They're just streaming that or art. So they recently had to raise some funds because their dog was sick and they needed to pay some vet bills. And so they were just live streaming for hours and hours, and people would donate for commissions. And so, I think it was a certain amount per minute of commission. And everyone was just sitting there watching her draw their commissions live on this stream. And if you've never watched somebody draw, it's way more fascinating than it sounds. And it's yeah, so it was really neat just sitting there watching her draw, and then it's like, your art is great. I want you. She made character art for me for this book, and it's just stunning.
Nice.
And so it's really fun to sort of be a part of that, and then
Yeah.
watch the art come to life before my eyes.
Yeah, visual art is wizardry to me. I have zero talent in it, and I see it, and I'm like, "You're clearly Gandalf." I don't know how you did that,
Wizards,
but yeah,
wizard,
yeah,
just magic. Yeah.
yes,
I'm
yeah.
not sure. I know some people do use streaming for writing too. I don't know that I would want to do that. Um, I'm not putting what I'm writing up on the screen, so you just be sitting there watching me going for an
You
hour.
know, I've seen that though. There's some like author tubers, which is kind of, like there's different types of content on. So there's like booktube where you're kind of mostly sort of doing reviews and top, but there's like author tubers where you're talking about like the craft and your process and your work in progress and that sort of thing. There's some author tubers that literally like they'll put the camera like perpendicular to their monitor so you can't see the monitor but you can see their keyboard, and like one of them will put like a timer in front of so they're kind of doing the what is the word starts with a T, where it's like a timer on a cycle,
Hmm.
whatever. Anyway,
What I'm thinking of is like Pomodoro or something, or like,
yes, yes, yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah. I don't know why that's not a T. That's a P. Anyway, but that's the
It's a
thing I'm.
tomato, actually.
Tomato,
So you're
tomato
not wrong.
time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
But
they're like doing sprints or something.
yes, yes, yes. And then like so in between the sprints, they'll kind of talk to camera, talk to chat, that sort of thing. Um, it seems to, I mean, they get especially like people these author tubers that have a fairly substantial audience, they'll get like a fair number of people watching them do this live, which also Patrick Rothfuss for a while was streaming on Twitch and like literally there was no video. You would just hear his like keyboard going clack 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 and like and there'd be like 1,000 people watching it and I'm like that's just the craziest thing. Like, only someone of like that stature can do that. But um yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Because the things that you can do. I feel like the biggest thing is just kind of get out there, right? Do something. Um Marie, email list building and publicity. This is something you can tell us about too, right?
Yeah, so we talked earlier about how valuable it is, that like if you're running a crowdfunding campaign, you get emails, but it's only valuable if you do something with those emails.
Dang
Sorry.
it.
Okay, first caveat is there's this thing called GDPR, which is really important to make sure, like, if someone does not know what this is, just go Google it. I will not take the full time to explain it, but the gist of it is people need to give consent to opting into your email list. You can't just throw people into marketing emails. It's bad. Uh, so with that caveat aside, so my co-author and I started sending out emails, I don't know, like a year before our book came out, because we just wanted to train people that we existed and we were putting up like a monthly email, and B, like we had stuff we wanted to talk about, like about the book writing and editing process, about cool stuff we were reading. That way we can like signal boost our friends or just other interesting things going on in the world. Um, and one of my very favorite email lists actually is Liza Palmer's email list,
Hmm.
because she likes to talk about like, oh, I found this lovely lip balm, and also I'm reading this great book, and has like just the most like cozy, affirming, loving, like personal note kind of at the beginning. It's not, it's everybody gets the same note, but it feels like you just got a hug from Liza.
Mm.
And so I aspire to give similar vibes as much as possible. So I definitely recommend that one. But it is a nice way also. There's this book by Austin Kleon called Show Your Work, and it's all about like part part of art that's interesting, like Vanessa was just talking about, is like watching it happen and watching it emerge. And so like I think as authors, we want to give people the shiny finished product and like it's professionally edited and da 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 da. But like also people are loving to see your deleted scenes, your thought process. Oh my gosh, this is why we had to completely rewrite Act Three. Like whatever. People like to see that journey and feel along for it, feel like they're along the ride for it. So we just get really honest about our process in it. And it also ties in with our Patreon, which I won't spend a lot of time talking about because I know that we have very limited time, but that's a really nice way to like nudge people into the Patreon as well to be like, hey, this month we have a short story. And if you support us at $6 a month, you can read it. Right. And so that's also a nice way to get paid for your writing because you have full control of what you put into your Patreon. And so, like, yeah, you could serialize your novel, or you could just be like, this is a garbage deleted scene. And they're like, cool. So, like, obviously, I don't frame it as I'm giving you trash. It's more like I'm giving you
This is delete. Yeah,
something that
yeah,
didn't work, right? And
yeah.
like this is why. And
Right.
but also like it's a kind of a sneak peek into like a direction we were going. And so it's like a look into the messy process of especially like a pantser
Right.
like me. So I get monetized for it.
No, I think that's cool. Yeah, it's feel like a director's cut that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to frame it. I love too what you're saying about the idea of show your work and bringing people into the process. I really strongly feel that like more and more that's going to be important for artists of all types, but like that's how we fight like, back against AI, right? Is we make the process human and we make ourselves human and we make the work connected to us as humans, and then the people that consume the work are going to also be connected to us as humans, because if again kind of like Stephen King, if he's smart in saying like this next book is good, not junk like I was saying, joking about, like people are going to be interested that are fans of him are going to be interested because they're fans of him, right? Yeah, like he's built
Right.
that credibility over time and connection over time. Um, yeah, and that's what we all need to do, and I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. It's credibility. And it's also, I mean, for those who are debut authors, there's the story and then there's
Hmm.
the story of the story, the meta story, right? And like, I wrote this when I was dealing with this or like whatever, and like there are people in your life who want to support you. They don't care what the
Hmm.
story's about, they just want to support you. So, yeah, if you can tell the story of the story, that can
Yeah.
be like that's not going to take place in the first 3 seconds of your pitch at the Ren Fair, but you can totally do that in an email.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think like people maybe get intimidated about email newsletter or something, but like it doesn't have to be that hard. Like especially if you establish like a format. One of the email newsletters that I really like is from Dan Wells, and he
Yeah.
talks about like what he's watched recently he likes, what he's reading recently that he likes, and like what he's writing right now. And that's kind
Yeah.
of maybe there's like a little extra note there, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Easy. I kind
Exactly.
of like it though.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yep. Yep.
Also, don't underestimate the power of pet pictures.
This is one of the things the internet was built for. Yep.
Oh, another thing that's working for me with Blue Sky is every weekend my family we have pancakes. We have a pancakes day. And I make little tiny ones that I feed to my dogs. I take videos and
Oh.
pictures of my dogs eating tiny pancakes. And I'm sure that half the people following me are there for that. Sometimes they also buy books. Um,
It's a bonus. It's a draw.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not okay. Dogs in bow ties. I have little bow ties for my
Oh,
dogs. Dogs in
well,
bow ties eating tiny pancakes once a week.
I mean,
And a
what's
slow
your what's your
shot.
blue sky? I'm signing up right now.
Right?
Yes.
See?
Yeah,
That's really
yeah,
good.
yeah. So, yeah, pets can be such a draw. I know there's a ton of authors I started following because they started posting pet pictures. I'm like, I love your dog. Oh, you write books too? Oh, I'm gonna check out your books. Like it works.
Writing a note to like put my book in front of my dog. I'm like my dog's reading my book. Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, do it,
Yep.
do it.
I've got
Little
5 dogs,
glasses
so
on
I've
your
got like,
dog.
yep, I got 5 different social media content right there with 5 dogs. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I've got three. Yeah,
There you
they're
go.
all ridiculous. They're all in my you can't see because of the background, but they're all in here with me right now. One of them is
Oh,
snoring behind me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I've
Yeah,
got one.
pets.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's actually, it's funny as we were saying like early, like what kind of works with social media, and like we didn't kind of identify this, but you're absolutely right. Like this is something that works with social media.
It doesn't matter what your pet is either.
Hmm.
Like I have dogs and I follow dog accounts, but like cat accounts, bird accounts, and there's one person I follow, she's always posting about her tortoise. He escapes all the time. Like, you know, there's whatever it is, your pet has a personality, and showcasing your pet's personality can help with social media.
Love it. Love it. Well done. Yep. Ladies, I could talk with you for another hour at least, but Right Hive won't let me. So no, this has been a delight. Danny, before you run, where can people find and follow you online, sir?
Oh yeah. So our website is the best place to find us, fourthwallpros.com. But if you want to find me on social media, it's at the Ace Blade, or you can follow the podcast, the Four Tails Podcast. And that's where I'll be.
Love it. Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for being here. Vanessa, where can people find and follow you online, please?
So I am primarily on Blue Sky and sometimes on Instagram. My handle is vricci-thode. It's Vricci. I'm the only Ricci-Thode in the world. If you can spell it, you can find me. I also have a personal website, thodestool.ca.
All right. I like it. All right. And Marie, where can people find and follow you online?
I am also on Blue Sky and Instagram at the Marie Parks, and marieparks.com.
There you go. And I'm Nicholas W. Fuller. You can find me at nicholaswfuller.com, and then you can find all my socials from there. Again, a delight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of Right Hive Con. And yeah, go sell some books in some creative ways.